Six Sages Gaming is brought to you by GamersGauntlet.net. Check them out for all your single, sealed product, and playmats.
Hey guys, welcome to another Six Sages Gaming Deck Spotlight, brought to you by GamersGauntlet.net. Today I have for you a really awesome Kaguya's Awakening deck. It's a 5-color deck, and Jared Warthen took it to a first, well, he split top 4, but I'm going to say first place finished anyways, at the ARG Circuit Series event that they had. That was Alice Cluster. They had 34 players, I think it was, so about the same amount as most of Italy's events, if not the same size. Italy had one event that was 50-some, but for the most part, that was pretty on par with what they were getting. I really like his deck because most Kaguya decks haven't been using Ruler's Memoria, and you'll see in this list that we get to do a lot of sweet stuff. So Jared asked me to go over his list and talk about it a little bit, so I was super excited and super happy to showcase it to you guys. So first we'll talk about Kaguya, then we'll get into the stone base, the main deck, and then lastly finish up with the sideboard and some of the options that he included in that. Alright, so up first we have everyone's friend from another world, Kaguya. The thing I like about this side is that, and I'm sure everyone's aware, is Moon can tap for wind, which is super relevant for the stone base and Kaguya's stone itself. And then a simple cost of light, moon, and 1. It does have the extra text that whenever a moon enters your field you get to draw a card. We only have cards on the sideboard that really enable this, so it's not that big of a deal in this deck, but it's great for what a lot of people have been brewing with. And then on her J-Ruler side, it just does a lot of good stuff. You can still spend the moon as if it was Wind Will, which is super relevant. Whenever you play Awakening card, she gets buffs. You can prevent the next damage that be dealt to her. But what I really like is her Goddard. Yes, it's a little bit expensive, but it can tap down your opponent's team, recover all your stones, so you can still do other stuff. So it lets you really get pushed through for that last little bit of damage you might need. So there's a couple different ways to build her, but there's a very interesting, more mid-rangey control feel to this deck. And once you get amassed just an insane board, you can just tap them out and swing for the lethal in one turn. So this has just been all around, and everyone knows that I love Kaguya. It's been a great ruler to see what kind of builds people are doing. So, without further ado, let's get into the stone base. 2 Black Moon Memoria. This is great because we want to be casting our Lucifers, and also it's, again, another will that can be tapped for wind, or the moon to wind. So again, this stone is basically a wind dark stone for our deck anyway, so it's just great to include. The staple of Kaguya's stone base, Moonbreeze Memoria. This is basically our Gusting Skies alternative, or Moonlight, sorry, which can then produce Wind Light, which is the most of the cards in our deck, so that's very important. And then what I really like about this deck is that it does include 4 Ruler's Memoria. Now I know people are probably sick of seeing this card or everything that it does, but hey, guess what? When our color fixing options are limited, this is probably the best card that a lot of decks are going to want. And this is the card that really opens up this deck up to a more 5-color control type deck. So without further ado, let's just get right into our 0 drops in the deck. Since we're playing Ruler's Memoria, we probably should be playing some Regalia. Up first, we have a Horn of a Sacred Beast. Nothing really needs to be said. If the game goes long, you use it to shuffle your cards back into your deck. That's really the main use of this card, because some of the times the games are just going to go longer. 3 Bows. Bows are still very, very good for either taking out additions or for being able to kill some lighter units like fairies and stuff like that. So this card has been, it was still pretty good in testing today, it turns out. If you get both bows out early or 2 bows out early, it can really slow down the pain train. And of course, one of the most important cards in the deck itself is Apollo. So this is great with Matchstick Girl, simply because it can reduce the awakening cost, or not reduce, but it can ramp into it, if you will. As you'll see on our Duel Series video this week, Daryl in Game 3 just devastated me by having a turn 2. He had double Apollo, turn 1 Moon Elf. So it was effectively he was doing it for 5, or for X equals 3, meaning he's got 3 Matchsticks out of his deck, and was just able to board wipe me early on. So that was very, very good for him. Speaking of our Matchsticks, we do play 3 of them. This, of course, combos with Little Matchstick Girl, so this is something that we'll go into a little bit more detail later, but it's also important to note that this gives something swiftness and first strike. So if you want to boot up, sorry, that's Kaijito term, if you want to Matchstick up a Celestial Seraph or something and get in for 10 damage, yes, it costs 1 more will, but you're going to be getting in there for a good amount of damage that your opponent might not have seen coming otherwise. And then we play 3 Wall of Wind. It's just a great counter spell to be running in the early games, especially if you get their Lancelot on 2. It's really going to help you get ahead against those decks that want to play everything on curve. And then, of course, the best one-drop for the deck, since it can't be attacked, Moonbreeze Elf. So again, it can tap for Moon, which is relevant. It can also be tapped for Wind Will, so you get to do like the turn 1 Moonbreeze Elf into, on your opponent's turn 1 Wall of Wind. Or turn 2, again, if you're on the draw. Moving into our 2-drops, we have one of Blessed Holy Wolf. Additions are very strong in Alice Cluster because there's not a lot of ways to get rid of them. So this card is great because it gives us a somewhat relevant body and it destroys something on enter. Moving into some counter spells, we have 3 Seal Wind and Light. Again, it's great because it costs Moon for the Awakening, so that's something that 1 buffs Kaguya, and it allows us to have the unanswerable counter spell in case we really don't want something of our opponents to resolve. Then we play 3 Angels of Wisdom. Again, another great Awakening card. It's great because it has flying and can get some more counters, buffs Kaguya if she's out, and then it gets to destroy a Dark or Fire Resonator, which it turns out is super relevant in the meta when everyone's playing Lancelots or Lucifers or things of that nature. So this card does a lot of work in Alice Cluster. Speaking of Alice Cluster, what's the main thing everyone's playing? Regalia, so playing 3 Heras. 5/5 bodies, nothing to scoff at, and it can just, you know, pop an orb, pop an Apollo, opponent's Apollo, something like that on enter, and gets us to draw a card, so definitely nothing to sneeze at. And then probably one of the, you know, the bread and butter of the deck is 4 little match girls. Being able to pay her Awakening cost with Apollo is great. Being able to search out those Matchsticks early, stop the more aggressive decks, and again, those Matchsticks can be tossed for 400 damage each, so as I mentioned earlier, as early as turn 2, Daryl was able to essentially toss out 1200 damage worth of burn. Now, important thing to note, if someone's playing Muse or something, that kind of doesn't feel too good. As I think it was in one of our playtesting videos, or maybe just our private testing, Muse really can shut down this combo hard, so that's something that you guys have to be very mindful of as well. But what's a good way to get rid of Muse? Oh, that's right, Vanish Effects. So this deck does play 3 and 3 of the Celestial combo with Seraph. Lucifer combo and a Celestial Wing Seraph, kind of put them together there. I think this is just going to be a great package that we're going to see play until we find some kind of better combination. Lucifer is great on itself, that it makes your opponent banish a Resonator. It's a 9/9 flyer, so that's super relevant. And it has the ability to gain life. So that is just everything we'd want in a 4-drop in a more mid-range control deck. As I mentioned, we'll also play 3 Celestial Wing Seraphs. 10/10 body, when it comes into play, we get to find our Lucifer, so we're putting 1900 attack worth of power on the board, and when she attacks, we get to gain life for each angel we have. So, again, life gain is kind of the name of the game when those 2 cards are played together. And then lastly, 2 Izanagi. This is something I haven't had the chance to play with a lot, but again, it can be great in the sense that it's going to remove 3 guys of your opponents from the game. So there's going to be some situations where you can play this, remove like their Lucifer, Seraph, and who cares what else. Let's name another flyer here. Yeah, you don't want them to get them back, but then you're swinging with your 1900 plus power damage in the air. So think of this as a way to remove multiple Resonators, swing through for lethal, or if you just combine it with Kaguya's Goddard, tap down the rest of their stuff. If you were going to tap them down anyway, or if they were trying to play something at instant speed with Ratatoskr or what have you, you can really clear your way to swing in for lethal. So that makes up the main deck. We'll just lastly talk about some sideboard cards that he had. One more Angel of Wisdom. Again, with all the Dark Fire that's running around, it's just a great card to finish off the playset. We have 2 Death Scythes. We don't want our opponents to have Swiftness, or it's just a great way if they're on a very J-Ruler focused strategy. You can slow them down with this, and then once you kill it, it's going to be gone for good. 2 Maribel, again, for the J-Ruler focused decks, or decks that have Regalia that you just need to interact with, especially like Excalibur X or Excalibur 3.0, whatever you want to call it. That's just not a card you want to see, and them being able to pump their J-Ruler or Avatar Alice is something that you have to deal with. So I think this is another card that's just going to be a staple, 2 of in a lot of decks. 2 Bedivere. This card's actually great for a number of reasons. One, it can remove other Seraphs from the game so they can't horn it back in. It's a 7/7 target attack, so that lets you pick off Lancelots that aren't buffed by anything or things of that nature. It can just really kill a lot of stuff that you might not otherwise be expecting. And again, if you put a Matchstick on it, you can give it Swiftness and First Strike, which again, you can swing at them for a 700, deal the first strike damage, then banish the Matchstick to deal 900, and then they don't actually have a spawn period of time where he's going to die. So this can actually swing into a, let's say, Lucifer and kill it without with the matchstick without having to worry about dying on, to damage otherwise normally. So that's something to really keep in mind. So the interesting thing out of his sideboard is he did play a tutor package, Knight of Solstice and 2 Nobles, which I'll get into in a minute. I actually didn't even know what this card was when I saw the deck list. I'm like, I can't imagine what this is. And again, it's just a great way to tutor up your Tsukunomi Nobles, and it's a 7/7 buy, so again, that's still going to be somewhat relevant. And speaking of our Nobles, it plays 2. This card is just great. It's your addition removal, it turns off their activated abilities, it draws a card when it enters. Depending on what the meta is looking like, I would definitely like to see 2 of these main board. The card is just great in the Kaguya deck, especially when you obviously can Apollo for the Awakening cost. So the card does a lot, and I think overall it's just a very, very awesome card. 2 of Valentinos Resistance. This is something that I've really been wanting to see play. Again, it has Awakening cost. Yes, you have to discard a card, but it lets you bounce 2 cards. Now, again, thanks to the way that damage works in Force Pool, this is something that you can, again, swing with one Resonator. They think that they're going to block profitably or what have you. You can bounce it to get through the damage, and you can bounce probably the other thing that they were planning on blocking with, and it really puts your opponent in a really awkward situation. Yes, you have to discard something. We don't have something like Space-Time Anomaly or Izanagi or something to get value out of discarding, but this is definitely a card that I think needs to see more play in the long run. And then lastly, a 2/0 Final Forfeit. Kind of just a catch-all card. Maybe you need to stop an Arthur from wiping your board. Who knows? There's just a lot of instances where this might be just the card you're looking for to clear something off the board, or not clear it off the board, but nullify its effect, so you can swing for lethal or something like that. So overall, again, shout out to Jared for taking this to a top 4 split, first seed finish, whatever you want to call it. I think he's the real winner in my book for playing a 5-color Kaguya deck in Atlas Cluster. This deck I am going to be playing a lot. I mean, that's why I even sleeved up the sideboard. I'm going to be testing this with our play group just because I love Kaguya and it's finally a chance to see what this might do. So if you like the video, guys, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. If you're looking for any kind of singles you might need, check out gamersgauntlet.net. Don't forget you can find us on Facebook as well at 6 Sages Gaming. And let us know what other rulers you guys might want to see. We're still trying to experiment, figure out what rulers we want to use. We're super excited for A4, if you saw our Green Machina deck last week. So we're still trying to figure out what other guys to play with. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys liked it, and we'll catch you on the next 6 Sages Gaming Deck Spotlight. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and leave us a comment with what you thought of the video. Don't forget to subscribe to 6 Sage Gaming and check out some of the deck spotlights, duel series, and Force of Community videos that are already on the channel. We also have a Facebook and a Twitter, so feel free to find us there. Lastly, if you have a deck that you would like featured in a video, be sure to drop us a comment below. Until next time, take it easy.